Hey everybody, welcome back to Team Brothership and our subordinate show talking about retro games with Bryan from Without Parole. Hello, Bryan.
Hey, oh yeah, is it talking about like
It's
just
talk.
apostrophe bout?
I know every time I type it, I hate it because it's talk in apostrophe, then another apostrophe bout retro games, and I'm just like, why did I do this? That just
You
looks
should
so.
you should just add more apostrophes in. It should be talking about etro game.
Yeah. It's just
Start cutting out letters.
Yeah, it was typed out by somebody with a really upsetting speech impediment, and they just stumbled through everything. Anyway, hello everyone. Welcome back, and yeah, we were just talking about how both of our weeks are turning into nightmares. So we, I guess, coincidentally timed, we decided that this episode we were going to talk about comfort food games, the games that we play or we go back to when the rest of life is a little challenging. I mean, maybe there are some just general challenge. It feels like a good topic. I feel like maybe life right now is challenging for a lot of people for different reasons. I just feel that way in the air for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely the first question I wanted to address when you brought this up. Is like, I don't know. I feel like video games as an art form overall, like the overarching feeling I have for retro games, or sorry, video games. Period. Is that I play video games to be comforted to some degree, right? It's like, and so like the entire hobby kind of feels like comfort food, and so to try to figure out which games within the hobby that already feels like a comforting hobby are comfort games. Right? This is it's like, man, like what kind of mood do we have to be in to call these games comfort games? Like is this about like when you're depressed? Is this about when you're bored? Is this about when you just need a hug and there's no one around? When do these kind of games come into the fold for you specifically, Mike?
Yeah. I mean, I'll kind of answer that in two ways because I feel like, well, yeah. One, I would say that the third option you posited of like when this is like when I need a virtual hug, when I like need to just share my I don't know, sadness or stress with somebody and there's no one around. Like this is what I turn to feel like warm fuzzies. Because what you're talking about, like, yeah, I mean, obviously, video. We were talking about this before we got on. Like, video games are your career, so there's an element of like you do have to play games that you don't want to. Where like this is just kind of a side gig for me. But like when I'm talking about comfort games, I guess, like, think about like Bloodborne is a game that I love. That's such an awesome game. I've played it a bunch of times. I would not consider Bloodborne a comfort game though. Like I don't feel like zen, calm, relaxed when I'm playing Bloodborne. Like I do, as much as I love it, I do have to be like, I can handle a little bit of stress right now. Like I will enjoy this, but I have to kind of like gird my emotional self before I dive into another session of Bloodborne, as opposed to something like, some of I'm tipping my hand a little bit, but like say some of the 16-bit Final Fantasies where like I know those games in and out. There's nothing particularly like threatening or scary about those games. Like I can rocket through them in like, a week or two, in most cases.
Yeah, see, I'm already getting the feeling that like you and I are going to have very, very different terms of
Okay.
which we describe the games we go back to and the games that we want to play during these times in our lives. Because I think about comfort movies, and I get a completely different vibe. And the vibe I'm getting is exactly what you're describing about video games. It's like something that you're familiar with, something that like it just reminds you of like a better time in life. And like, I think of like things like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Oh, yeah.
Things like The Goonies and Ghostbusters. Just these like great movies, well written, just like every word. Just because you've seen them so many times, not because you've sat around and tried to memorize the script, but because you've just
Right.
seen them so many times and you just love them so much. And it's like, and that's just comforting. That's like, I can think of a bunch of games that I feel that way about, but I don't really go back to those kind of games in my life anymore. Like maybe when I was younger and I would play and replay games, but none of those games made my list. Like there is no Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade of video games on my list, which is really funny because, I mean, there are games like that I have, and I could have just lied and been like, yeah, these are games that I love so much that I know inside out, but I don't actually replay them, and I don't think of them as comfort games. So I'm very curious to hear the things that are on your list, and sort of see the difference between the games that we play for comfort gaming. My cat is all into this right now.
Yeah, we're recording like right on the cusp of the danger zone in my house, like in potentially 30 to 45 minutes, like the screaming choir will come in and begin the 40-minute long summoning of dinner. But so
it's a ritual, huh?
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Very much so. A lot of pomp and circumstance. Well, that's interesting. Now, I'm wondering if this is going to come down. I mean, obviously, we will shortly be kind of sharing our lists, but I'm wondering if this comes down to just like the different ways or the slightly different motivations that we have when we actually play video games. Because I want to ask you a question. Is it the reason that you don't replay games? Is it like just a time issue, or is it more of like because you're not going to get that same sense of discovery the second time through?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little combination of things. Like again, when I was younger, and man, I hate bringing this up because it feels like we bring this up like every single episode. But once upon a time, you got a game for your birthday and a game for Christmas, and so it wasn't like we had like massive video game collections when we were kids, right? And even like later on in life, like high school, college, all that, I would have to sell the games that I bought in order to buy the next game that I wanted to play. And so I didn't really have this like ability to go back and play something many times, or if I did, it was just a select few games that I just was never getting rid of, like Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2, like just never left my Sega Genesis collection ever, right? And so I think it's just because when I was younger, these were the games that I had, and this is what I had access to, and so playing something over and over and over was just inherently part of being a gamer. Whereas being an adult, it's like I suddenly have way more options.
Sure.
And so when I sit down to play a game and I look at my shelf, I still see games, even after purging most of my collection, I still see games that are sealed in cellophane that I haven't ever opened or played. Like, how good is Ever Oasis?
Oh yeah, it's a fun one.
I don't know the answer to that question, Mike. Right? And so if I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna sit down and just play something, I have like the rest of the day free or just a couple of hours free, like where I won't feel guilty about not working. Then it's like that's the kind of stuff that especially at this point in my life, I feel like playing something that I've already played is just like is not tackling the backlog. And the backlog, there's a certain level of stress I think that comes along with having a ridiculously insane backlog. And it's like, let's start knocking that shit out, man. Like let's start seeing what these games are about. Like I bought them at some point. Let's see if they're any good. Ever Oasis. I don't even know. It's crazy.
Well, this is
sort of where I'm at.
Yeah, and I can kind of empathize with that. Although it is a little bit of a non sequitur, but it did make me think. I was going to put a game on my game shelf the other day, and I found I had to move some games to fit it in, and so I was like shifting games, and I was looking at my copy of Enslaved: Odyssey to the West.
Yeah.
The Andy Serkis game. And I looked at it, and it was sealed. But I know I've played that game. How did that happen? I actually stood there holding it for a while, and I was like, I remember playing this game. Like, but not this copy clearly. Like, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I've been there so many times. I definitely have sealed games that I've played before, and it's just because, for me, you sell stuff, you get rid of stuff, you start paring down a certain game collection or whatever, and then and then you just see it, is like it's on eBay or you're in a store and you're just like, oh yeah, I remember liking this game. Like, why did I ever get rid of this? And then you pick it up and it just sits on your shelf sealed. And it's like, yeah, and you don't even think to pick it up because you have already played it at some point. Right? So, yeah, it's a strange phenomenon, but I've experienced it multiple times too.
Yeah, maybe that is something that happened. I don't think I've sold and rebought games as often as you have from our discussions, but maybe that did happen at some point. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I've sold my entire collection 4 times in my life, and so and that was 3 of those was before you'd ever even met me.
Right.
Sometimes it was like just to fund, like if I was selling everything I owned and moving to Tennessee and starting a new life, and then 5 years later, I was broke and had to sell everything I owned in order to get back to Massachusetts. Right, so it just phases of life.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I'll be doing this again sometime. Like it's like, it seems like I go through phases in my life where I'm like, oh, I just want to live a simple life and I don't want to own anything, and because I don't want it to hold me back or like bog me down or keep me like stuck in one location. And then next thing you know, I have 17 bookshelves of games, and I was like, I guess I'm stuck here for a little bit. So, I've definitely found myself like picking up games again and just being like I just cleared out my entire collection. Once a collector, always a collector.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's a hard habit to break. But going back to what you said before, like, yeah, I definitely get that too. Like, as somebody who does have a huge collection of games and is continually acquiring more, I do sometimes feel a little guilty when I'm replaying an older one when I'm like, I could be trying something new, I think that's why a lot of the games that have kind of settled on my list of like comfort games are ones that I can knock out in like a couple of days. So it's just like taking a little break from things.
Like, just before we dive into like the actual games on our list or the genres or whatever it is, I just say like you and me and a couple other people that we know are part of a group discussion, a group DM on our phones, and recently just been talking a lot about the 3DS.
Oh yes.
And suddenly getting access to games that I've lost access to. Dude, because I was kind of late on the 3DS, right? It's like by the time I really wanted to get into it, I think they'd already shut down the eShop. And so I had no idea about all the games that were on there, on the eShop, that you just no longer have access to. And so, I don't want to talk a whole lot about hacking or emulation or whatever here, right? Because like I don't want to, I want to err on the side of caution, and for the most part, I would say if you're able to play an actual retail available copy that you can purchase, then maybe stealing it isn't the way to go. But these games are just unavailable, and I think that there's something as much as playing games it can be comforting, making sure that you have access to the games that you want to play in the future can be just as comforting. And I don't know how familiar you are with the eShop. Probably way more familiar than I am. But there were a couple of games that I'm really, really glad that are still out there and able to be accessed, including Creeping Terror, which is very Silent Hill-ish, maybe more Clock Tower-ish, and then the remake of the first Dimension game. In 3D, which is very, very cool. And so just kind of like making sure that I'm set up for the future, like when I want to play these games or when I get around to playing them, that they're there. There's just something comforting about like, just sort of downloading the right things and making sure they're all ready for you and sitting on your shelf and ready to go. I think that's part of the collecting thing, right? It's like, do we all lie to each other in the same way, or lie to ourselves in the same way, and say, I'm going to play this game eventually, like this magical, mystical time in the future where you have all the free time in the world. Like, I'm never going to retire, Mike. There's just not a future where I see myself having the amount of time I need to play these games. But every time I pick up a game or download a game, I go, one day when I have time, I'm going to get around to this. And I don't think that day exists. But it's comforting. It's comforting to lie to yourself.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a big part of collecting, I think, is that feeling of, because video games especially, I think you and I have talked a little bit about, like, we're still, like, if video games as art, whatever, we don't have to have that big debate, but, like, if video games are art, we're still at that point, like, in the early era of film, where like they would film a movie, show a movie, and then just like throw it away to clear like where like there's so much from the silent film era that is just like you can never watch those now because they were filmed, they were shown in theaters, and then they were destroyed, and that was it. And that's still very much where video games are, and it's challenging because I think I said this in the last episode, like Earthbound and Panzer Dragoon Saga like traumatized all of us because it was like, oh, these great games came out and then like you just couldn't play them like they were just gone. And like Earthbound you can play a few other ways now, but like Panzer Dragoon Saga, they're like, oh yeah, we threw out the original source code, like sorry guys. So it's like we're all like living in fear of that next like Panzer Dragoon Saga, where like this awesome game comes out. We don't hear about it till like 6 or 7 years down the line, and you just like you can't find copies or at least can't find them for a reasonable price. So we're all just like, we want to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Mike, do you want to kick this off? How did you go about planning for this episode? Because I went about it kind of thinking about the genres that I gravitate towards. Did you think about specific games, or was it also genres?
I think I was thinking more specific games, but I will certainly say that those do tend to fall into a handful of genres. And actually, what got me thinking about this is it kind of ties into what we were just talking about. Lately, I have a new job lately, which is awesome, and it's been, but it's like stressful. It's a new job. So while I've been at work during kind of my downtime, when I'm just doing more like paperwork kind of stuff, I've been listening to video game soundtracks, and I've basically found myself continually for the last week or two, like going back to the Earthbound soundtrack, and just how like comforting it is. And I would actually say there are other games that I've played a lot more, and there are other games that I like more. But as far as like games that just make me feel like warm and comfortable and safe, like I think Earthbound is probably at the top of my list.
When did you first play it?
So I was real into role-playing games back in the 16-bit generation, so I just kind of scooped up almost everything for the Super Nintendo, so I had a copy of Earthbound. Although, interestingly enough, I actually didn't really like it. I played through it once. You kind of don't have an excuse to play through it because it came with like a fully encompassing strategy guide. So even if you get stuck or anything, you could still make headway. It didn't really click with me. I think because I was so young, I just like didn't get it on some level. But then replaying it as an adult, or I mean maybe as like a late teen at that point, it just really clicked. And ever since then, something about the rhythm of that game, I just like the pacing, the way it works, and like the progression through the different like hierarchies, of starting out in your hometown, fighting off like stray dogs and like street punks, like progressing to, an underground bunker where you're fighting like aliens and killer robots. Like it just feels so like well paced.
Man, you're making me wish that I'd stuck with that one, because I've watched full playthroughs. I have a pretty good understanding of where that game goes and the basic story of it all. But I think I've only done like the first 2 or 3 hours of it or so. Okay, let me ask you this, and this is gonna kind of tie into some of the thoughts that I had when kind of prepping for today. If Earthbound is something that you play as kind of like a comfort game, do you start at the beginning every time and just play all the way through? Like how long is Earthbound?
It's not super long. And like a lot of these role-playing games, once you get like familiar with them, you kind of know where the shortcuts are, how to like speed things up. It's definitely a game Actually, right before we started filming, I was like, "Oh, on some level, this is sort of a redundant episode because if you want to see what my comfort games are, like, just look at my the Let's Plays that I've been making, basically, like, because that's what it like. I want to share the games that I have a lot of affection for and that I can get through quickly. And I think my Earthbound one is like, I don't know, 15 or 16 episodes, so you can probably get through that game in like under 20 hours if you're moving at a steady clip.
See, okay, here's where the discrepancy between our list comes in then, because I feel like comfort games for me have to be something very non-committal, something where you're like, right? Because if I want something that I'm going to be able to play for an hour, maybe 2 hours or 3 hours, and feel like I've gotten a complete gaming experience, but and then not just leave off some like this new saves game that now I've got to like come back to that like tomorrow or the next day or next week, right? I just don't feel like that's something something that I'm gonna do, especially when I feel like comfort games are something that you just like kind of need like interspersed in your life while you're playing all like new games. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't see it as something that I'm going to sit down. Although I will say, I could be wrong about this because I did start playing Dark Cloud 1.
Oh, really?
The other day, yeah, and like and I sat there and dude, I might be wrong about this, but I don't think I've played Dark Cloud 1 since it first came out. Like,
wow.
Yeah, was it a launch title or just near launch for the PS2?
I think it was a near launch title. I think it was like in that second batch of games.
Yeah, I remember getting it as soon as it came out. I remember really digging into it. I was unemployed and living with my parents, and they were going to work every day. And the second they were gone, I started drinking. I was getting really good at making screwdrivers, so just orange juice and vodka, and just wasting the whole day away. Like, and getting a couple resumes out there to make it seem like I was, trying to get a job. But really, I was just enjoying being a drunk and playing games. Like, but the problem with that, Mike, is that there were so many games during that era that I played the crap out of from start to finish. Orphan Scion of Sorcery is another one that was not the greatest game, but like I played the crap out of it. I beat those games start to finish, and I don't remember big chunks of them because I was just drunk. And so Dark Cloud is a game that I went back to, and I'm like relearning the Georama system. I like relearning how to put like all the houses and trees and roads and everything down, exploring the dungeons, remembering how to level up my weapons, and dude, I got to the end of the first dungeon. I got to the second world, and I saved my game and said I am definitely coming back to this. And so, despite everything I'm going to say for the rest of this episode, I'm kind of with you, I guess, to a certain degree. But again, I don't. If Dark Cloud's not going to be something that I would play once a year or once every 5 years. Like it's something I haven't played in 25 years, and it feels really nice to come back to. So I think I understand where you're coming from here.
Yeah, it's. I mean, for me, and I want to hear, because we did talk a little bit before we started prepping this episode, and so I know your list is different from mine, but and I want to hear about kind of your way of looking at it. But yeah, like I mean, when I think about comfort games, it's usually not something where I'm like, oh, I'm having a sick day and I just need something to like dither around. Like I'm thinking about like, ooh, like life is challenging right now. I need my old friends to hang out with me for like a week or two,
that makes perfect sense.
Cheer me up. So yeah, it's like it's less a like impulsive, or not I don't mean impulsive, but it's less a like spur of the moment kind of like I just need a snack, and more just like I need something to cheer me up a little bit. So spending, and I think that's why a lot of those 16-bit games, the 16-bit RPGs really click with me, because like they're just that right amount of length. Games nowadays, I've been playing Metaphor recently, and I'm at like hour 115 or 120 or something, and it's just like, it's fun, but I'm never going to play this game again. Where like something that's like 15 to 20 hours, that's like 2 to 3 weeks of moderate gaming time, and like that like you can have a little adventure and then like be ready to move on to your next thing.
Yeah. See, man. See, I feel like modern games to some degree have sort of ruined me a little bit, and so when it comes down to this stuff, I do feel as though I kind of always have to be progressing towards something, right? I feel like in order to scratch that itch, in order to make me feel like I am, I'm getting what I need out of the game, but also I'm putting something into that game that'll not be lost or forgotten. And so you already know what I'm about to say. Is that
Right.
Is that roguelites are such a big thing for me recently, because roguelites I feel like are the ultimate comfort food of gaming, because the setup for anyone listening that's not really familiar with roguelites is that it's not really a long game. I think most roguelites, if you play from start to finish without dying, generally are a couple hours, usually at most. But the point of it is that you get in there, and one of the first enemies kicks your ass, and you are dead. Like, you're just done, and that's it. And then you get sent back to the beginning, and you're able to upgrade some characteristic of your character, or you get a better weapon, or something that allows you to progress just a little bit further. And so it's this really ultimately short game that takes you 20, 30, 40 hours to get through, or or whatever it is, it gets, or if, even when you complete it, there's a reason to play through again and again and again on harder difficulties or whatever it might be. And every roguelite does their thing differently. But the fact is that you're bringing something back. Like, you are making progress even when you die. You're bringing something back. You're getting experience points or whatever to put towards your character or whatever it is, to make sure that the next time you play, it's a little bit easier than it was before. And which means that when I want to play something comforting, it's like, well, here's a world and enemies and systems that I'm very, very familiar with, because I've done the same run 100 times.
Sure.
But I'm also making progress, and that save game is just getting beefier and beefier and beefier, right? And so, thinking about roguelites that really, really work for me. I don't even. What's funny is that I've been playing a lot of Phasmophobia recently.
Okay. Yep.
And because I didn't care about it until it was a VR game, and now that it's on PSVR 2, I'm like, yep, this is amazing. And I don't think of it as a roguelite, but it is actually one, where you go out.
Technically.
You hunt ghosts, you get your evidence, and then if you do everything successfully, then you come back and you've gotten all this XP, all this extra cash, and then you buy better equipment in order to make your next run a little bit easier. And there's just so many games like that where it's like you get to be non-committal. And I think that's the most important thing when it comes to comfort games for me, is that I just don't want to commit. I don't want to do a 15-hour RPG. I don't want to do a 50-hour RPG. I want to do something that I can spend 20 minutes with, or an hour with, or 2 hours with, and then at the end of it, feel like I've accomplished something that will be there the next time I want to spend a half an hour or 2 hours with. So I think that's mostly where I'm coming from when it comes to these types of games.
Yeah, no, and that's really interesting. Because it does feel like we're coming from very different angles. I've always had kind of mixed feelings about roguelites, and I think it's more the length of the run. Like, I've really liked some, and I've really not liked some.
Tell me some that you've liked.
I liked Binding of Isaac a lot. I put a lot of time. Yeah, Binding of Isaac is real. I mean, I did play it with like an item guide sitting next to me, open on my phone. But I liked Binding of Isaac a lot.
You know that I've been playing Binding of Isaac since it came out, and I only completed a run within the last few months.
Really?
I am terrible at Binding of Isaac. I probably have hundreds of runs, and I finally beat the game one time, which is similar to my experience with Spelunky. Not gonna lie, I was terrible at Spelunky. I put like 100 hours into that game, and then finally beat it once. And then once you beat it once, you're kind of like, oh, wait, this isn't that hard. And then I feel like there's like a mental block And once you get over the mental block of being like, oh, this isn't impossible. This is actually like, this is totally fine. Once you've convinced yourself that it's not that hard, then you can just like start, beating it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Wow. Binding of Isaac's so good though. The variety in that game is amazing. Yeah,
and although I will say it's so varied now that like I'm not sure if the version I have is the most updated. Like there's all these like different versions of it between different platforms and different updates, and I'm like, I think the one that I own is like the most updated, but I don't know, maybe.
I couldn't even tell you, man. I couldn't even tell you.
But but what I like about Isaac is that the central gameplay mechanic is very simple. That is one that I feel like I probably could go back to and like play around with, and that an individual run, like if I would say it shouldn't really take you much more than an hour to like beat that game if you like get a decent loadout. I mean, like if you get stuck somewhere real bad, I suppose, but like you're probably gonna die anyways. But because a lot of other, like I played a lot of Dead Cells too, and I eventually just kind of gave up on it because I feel like even a good run takes kind of a long time, and like you do have to know like the boss path. Like I feel like I got relatively close to the end of the game, but I feel like if I went back now, even with all of my unlocks and everything, I would be functionally starting over again because I feel like I would still need to like relearn all the boss patterns and like, because that when I went through, that was kind of how each run would go. I would get to a boss and I would die, and then I would get back and I would be like, okay, I know how this guy works now, and I would get past that boss and get to the next one and die, and then I would be like, okay, well I got this one's loadout. So for me, I feel like roguelites can feel like you're starting over just because you have to like remember how, like for a lot of them, it's less like what you've unlocked and more like, do you remember how these systems work?
Right. Yeah, and I tend to gravitate toward the ones that are very punishing. The ones that allow you to get way too far on your first run. I'm like, something's wrong here. Like, the developer isn't making this game for me. I feel as though like if you think that you can beat the game on your first run, on your first attempt, it's like they didn't quite nail it. It's like you want to give me a reason to die and start over and want to grind away at this game and die again and again to be a little bit more powerful every single time. So frequently, man, that's just not the case, and I don't know how many of your viewers are into VR games, but the best one to, at least in my recent recollection, is Until You Fall. This game by Shell Games, where it's sword fighting, but it kind of feels like DDR a little bit.
Oh,
because it's like, yeah, because it's a lot about just putting your sword in the right position, like like bam, 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 almost in rhythm, and you get your butt kicked real fast. Like real fast. Like, I don't think you're gonna play for more than 5 minutes before you're dead. And then there's but then something along like Synapse comes along, which is a first-person shooter telekinesis game.
Okay.
And I think you could definitely get to the end of that game on your second run, and they allow you to like level up and unlock all these abilities way too quickly. Like by the, you play 45 minutes. You don't die, and then you get back to your main hub, and then you're just like, oh, well, I've played for so long that I can unlock this and 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 this, and you're like super upgraded, and they're like, oh, you can probably beat it on your second run, and like that doesn't really work for me. Like I want something that like I feel like I'm making progress every single time. I am a stronger character now than I was 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago or whatever it is. Do you play Vampire Survivors?
No, I've seen that one, but I haven't played that one yet.
It is the ultimate roguelite, the ultimate comfort food game. It is just because it just gives you a list of stuff to do, right? You just go in and you just kill everything. But when every single time you go in and you've got a different objective in mind because there's just a list of things you're trying to knock out, that seems endless. I've got over 100 hours in Vampire Survivors, and I just still haven't rolled credits. Like, and I'm making progress almost every time I play. It's crazy. These are, yeah. It's. I think Vampire Survivors is the ultimate comfort game because you don't do much, man. Like, it's you don't even attack. You don't even push the attack button. It's all just everything that every power up you have is on cooldown, and so you're just moving an analog stick around. You might as well watch a TV show or something while you're playing, because you're not doing much. You know what I mean? But you feel like you're accomplishing so much every time you have a great run. So.
I mean, that's kind of how those gacha cell phone games work too, right? Like you're not really doing a lot, but like each time you log in, you're unlocking a few more little things and like
yeah, ultimately, yeah.
Yep.
Vampire Survivors is on another level though, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not. I had no interest in picking it up. A friend on Discord was like, "Do you trust me? Spend $5 on Steam." Like it's, and I was like, yeah, I guess, because it was one of those games that like you don't know about until you know about it, and then once you know about it, you now tell everybody in your life about, and then suddenly everybody in your circle is all playing Vampire Survivors for weeks. But before that, it was a great word of mouth game, and then the fact that it finally made it over to PlayStation. I mean, this is one dude just using like, bot assets. He just had a good idea for a game. Such a great success story, and now he's got the Castlevania license, and with Castlevania DLC.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that part.
Yeah. Oh, you just gotta love this guy. Just knew how to make like this very addictive game. And then every single time you find a chest and like you get these random power ups, it's using slot machine sound effects, and so like he knows how to trigger the dopamine in your brain, right? You've won again. You've won again. There's
the cell phone thing. There's the gacha element.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Vampire Survivors is like, dude, I forget how much my Steam Deck costs, but when people say Vampire Survivors is a $5 game, I've said no, it's not. It's a $505 game, because that's I played. God, I played Days Gone when I first got my Steam Deck.
Oh yeah.
But I got about 50 hours into that game and said, okay, I think I got to put this down. It's a great game, but I just kind of had enough, and it wasn't doing it for me at the moment. But definitely a great game. And the next thing I knew, the only thing I was playing for 6 months on my Steam Deck was Vampire Survivors. So, yeah, highly recommended. Spend $5, it's worth it.
All right, yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I mean, I feel like every video online that I've seen of that game is just like, it's like the video is of Vampire Survivors, but it's just like somebody talking about like challenges in their personal life, like while they play Vampire Survivor.
I mean, that makes sense, right? There's not a lot to talk about when you're playing the actual game.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's very passive, figuratively and literally.
I feel like, drifting back to some of my comfort games, I feel like for my Let's Plays, whenever I like start talking about myself, I'm always just like, oh God, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not talking about the game anymore. Like this is going off the rails.
Dude, in 10 years of doing YouTube stuff, I've only gotten one comment ever that's like, dude, no one cares about your personal life. Just play the fucking game. And I'm like, what? Like literally one time, and I think what people, especially content creators need to realize is that like most people are there for you, right? It's like they can watch gameplay of any game anywhere, right? Especially if it's a popular game that's been around for a while. But most people are actually there to hear about, what's going on with Mike. How's his personal life going, right? And so there is an element of that. And if you are the person out there who's like, we don't want to hear about your personal life, well, go watch another channel.
Yeah. I mean, fair enough. Well, so what are some other ones? So I really liked Binding of Isaac. I played a lot of Rogue Legacy, but I never finished it. I would always get to that slime boss, and just like I could never get past the slime boss.
I never beat Rogue Legacy. I put a lot of work into that one, but I have no idea how far I am. I'm gonna guarantee it's not far at all. How How long is that to get through?
I think there's like 4 main bosses, and then that opens the door into like the heart of the castle. And I don't know if there's another area in there, or if it's just the final boss. Because again, I've never beaten the slime, who I think is like 3rd or 4th boss.
I think maybe have made it to the second boss, and I just have no idea why some of these games feel so challenging to me. And again, I'm the guy that just said I want these to be as challenging as possible. But I don't feel like the upgrade system in Rogue Legacy makes life all that much easier for you. I feel like you just have to get better at the actual game, which I appreciate too.
Yeah, and there's also, we haven't really touched upon it, but there's like the random element of it. Obviously any good roguelite is not going to like soft lock you anywhere, but like, I mean, there are definitely, I've beaten Binding of Isaac, I don't know, half a dozen times or so, and like a lot of that was due to like I got good the relic, the random generated relic, like I just got a really good loadout, and it made things way easier.
We're gonna have to get you into VR, Mike, because I feel like Ancient Dungeon is where it's at for roguelites.
Okay.
It's like you just go through four stages of progressively more challenging dungeons. It's just a dungeon crawler, but man, some of the power-ups you get are really cool, and like it's all like luck of the draw. Sometimes your weapon is gonna be what saves you, and sometimes it's gonna be just like the number of hearts you get that saves you. Every so often you just get this weird thing that's growing out of your hand that's shooting at enemies for you. I love the randomness of these games. We gotta get you into VR, man. This is unacceptable. We've been friends for too long, and I've been playing VR for too long. There's something wrong here.
Someday. I only just got a PS5 recently. I need some time to like play around with the PS5 first.
Must get comfortable with newfound power.
But I feel like my games are going back to my games, they're gonna be very boring, because it is just like, it's a lot of that kind of Earthbound stuff. I think that for me personally, that era of gaming coincided with like a time in my life that felt very cozy, or that like I have cozy associations with. So there's that angle, but it's also the fact that those games are like just that right length where like I know them well, and it's not going to take me a lot of time to get through them. But it's still enough that like, so it's like, yeah, right at the end of the 16-bit era, beginning of the 32-bit era, before things just like ballooned enormously and it was too much. But there have been some other games that I've played like as an adult that I would say fall into that category, like Castle Crashers. I feel like that's a fun one to, especially if you can get some friends together and go through it too. When you were talking about Phasmophobia, do you go through as a group with people, or do you just do it by yourself?
It depends what mood I'm in. Like if I'm feeling social, then yeah, I'll definitely grab 3 friends and we'll grind away for an hour or two. If you've got a good group and you all kind of know your roles, then that's awesome. But I don't know, man. It's like every time I end a session of Phasmophobia, like a multiplayer session, I am like, all right, guys, see you later, and then I drop out of multiplayer, and then I keep playing Phasmophobia by myself for like another hour. And because it just feels like a completely different game. Have you played it, or?
I haven't played it, but I've seen. I was gonna say, it seems like it would be fairly challenging to do by yourself. Just like it seems like it's built around something of a team mechanic, because you have a fairly limited inventory, right?
Yeah. I mean, in VR, you can carry 2 things in your hand and then holster 2 things, or sometimes 3 things, depending on what they are. And so, but that's sort of why I like playing it alone. And obviously, it's a horror game.
Sure.
But when you play it with friends, it tends to not be as scary, because you're talking to them. Sometimes you're like running out to the truck to grab more items, and like on your way back, you hear through your radio that like, oh my god, it's chasing me, I'm running to the closet, like whatever. And so you're missing out on the cool, scary stuff, right? Or you're missing out on like your life being in danger because you're out in the truck being a coward. And so, so when you play it by yourself, it's all happening to you. Right, and so you're getting the full breadth of being hunted by the ghost. You're getting the full breadth all of the creepy stuff that's going to happen, and there's no one around to save you or distract the ghost. If it's hunting, it's going to come after you, right? And so there's something about that I really enjoy. That's for me, that at least that's why it's great. Sorry, sirens on my end. That's why it's great.
Oh yeah, no, there's like screaming kids out in front of my house, so
maybe the sirens. I hope the sirens are coming for the kids in your neighborhood.
Maybe.
But
yeah, it's funny, like because you say it's a horror game, and obviously it is, but yeah, I feel like I've mostly seen videos of people playing it as a group where it kind of comes across as like very silly because they're all just like running around and like getting attacked and trying to set up things and failing and but yeah, I guess thinking about it in a vacuum, like yeah, it does seem like it would be pretty freaky to be playing by yourself like in the dark.
I'm assuming you asked if I played it in multiplayer because there's some multiplayer games that you've got on your list.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking like Castle Crashers. You know, that's a fun one to go through by yourself, or like a lot of beat 'em ups too. You know, those, especially the ones that have the more RPG like stat growth, so they're a little more meaty. Something like a Castle Crashers or a Scott Pilgrim, where you know, it can be fun to just sit down and do a run by myself, but also like, again, if I'm feeling low, if I'm feeling like I need company, I can get my video game friends and my real friends in the same interaction. So
nice. Hey, speaking of which, you had kind of a game day not that long ago where people actually came over to your house and played games and hung out and stuff.
Yeah, because we were talking about that the other day. I was like, oh, I should do one of those at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't get through a ton of games because people have lives now and they can't just sit around and play you know, SNES games for an entire day. But yeah, we played. We actually played all the way through King of the Monsters 2, which I'd never seen the ending of before.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's the monster wrestling game.
Yeah, I mean, man, Neo Geo. What were you playing it on?
Yeah, it was originally a Neo Geo. We actually played the Super Nintendo version.
Okay. Nice. That's really cool.
Yeah, which is
and just for the record, I wanted to be there, and the reason I wasn't was because we were supposed to be streaming. We were doing this fundraiser stream for the channel at the exact same time, and then I woke up like an hour before I was supposed to do the fundraising stream, and I was like, I had gotten like 2 hours of sleep, and it wasn't enough. Like I was just like, I can't keep my eyes open, and I went back to bed and didn't get out of bed till like 3 p.m. that day or something crazy. And so not only did I bail to do a fundraising stream, I bailed on the fundraising stream as well.
That's probably a little worse. we missed you, but we still had fun. We played some like shoot 'em ups and things. We actually like put the Polymega through its paces.
Nice.
So.
Oh man. I need to my Polymega. I've already sent my Polymega in for one repair. That was my fault, and now I need to send it in for repairs that are not my fault.
Oh, what happened now?
The disk drive just stopped working. Because what I was doing, I was just burning disk after disk after disk, and I was making that thing run nonstop for about 3 months. And so I think I just wore out the drive very quickly. And then and so not only does the disk drive not work anymore, but it just doesn't seem to want to connect to the internet, whether I'm plugged in with an Ethernet cable or using Wi-Fi. Like it's just like the entire internet aspect of it is broken.
You know, that makes me think. I downloaded the. I was in Boston yesterday, and I'll give a little plug. There's a really cool little retro shop in Boston called Replayed. And their prices are really good. They had a ton of really cool stuff. So I grabbed a bunch of stuff and I was loading it onto my Polymega when I got home. And I downloaded the update for it, their most recent update. And I did notice, like, that was kind of the last thing I did, just because I was like, well, if I break anything, I want to have these games taken care of first. I did notice that it didn't connect to the internet right away after I installed the update, and I was just like, I'll worry about that later, and I shut it down. So was it when you installed the newest software?
Maybe I feel like I downloaded the newest update, and then anytime I checked for an update after that, like over the last month or two, it it says it's not connecting to the internet, and then when I ask it to look for a new update, it very quickly says no new update found, meaning like that it's not actually connecting to the service, I think.
Right.
So I think that's what the problem is. I don't know though. I don't know.
Okay.
It makes me worried, man. Because I was so into Polymega and so so gung ho about that being like the system that I use to play my retro games on, and it's just like, man, there just seems to be a lot of problems. Whereas like there are many other alternatives that offer way more games at an easy that you can access much easier. That seem to have fewer problems, and I'm like, I want these guys to succeed. I just don't know if I'm going to keep going along for the ride.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, because I for our listeners, like, or viewers, I bought your like spare and some of your other stuff off of you, and it is super fun. Like, I've been really enjoying playing around with it, and it's a cool concept. But yeah, I kind of agree. The actual like gear itself, like the actual system, does not feel very like sturdy and reliable. You had this as like a story for our viewers. The one you sold me was missing the little like cover for, or not missing, but it was missing the screw to hold the little cover onto the like memory expansion or the hard drive expansion slot. So I just went online and bought a bunch of like little, like electrical screws, and I was like, oh, that's no problem. But I wanted to use it ahead of time, so I just like duct taped over it. When I put the screw in, it will not recognize the hard drive. Like, however the screw holds the drive in, it will not recognize it. But if I put the tape on, it's fine. So, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
That
Wonderful.
feels like a hardware issue.
Yeah.
Like,
oh man. Yep. So yeah, anybody out there who's considering the Polymega, maybe hold off until there's like some kind of revision, maybe like a Polymega 2 or something like that, if they ever get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say don't do it, but I would say like just be aware that there's some finickiness. Like it's an interesting piece of hardware, not necessarily a like reliable piece of hardware.
Yeah, and especially for the price that you pay.
Yes.
Like you would expect something that's a little bit more reliable, and because I mean, what I love about it is that you turn it on and it's it's got its whole interface and ecosystem that's sort of like unique to Polymega, meaning that you boot into the UI and you see all your games, and it just feels like so much more elegant than anything else that's out there, using emulation. Like every game feels special. Every game has its own thumbnail. It has its own homepage, and it says, "Hey, if you like this, and you probably will like these other games," and you can kind of look and see what games are missing from your SNES collection or Genesis collection or whatever it is. It's such a cool ecosystem to be in. They just need to polish some of the rough edges.
Yeah. No, the interface and the software is very, very cool. It does, like, because I have a RetroPie set up too. You do too, right? You did finally set up a.
Not a RetroPie specifically. I've got a mini PC that does essentially the same thing though.
Yeah. So I have a RetroPie set up, which is super cool, and like you can basically play anything. Like, but yeah, the interface, it's like you're just kind of looking at names in a list for the most part. So it's not quite as like eye-catching and engaging.
Yeah, it's not as much fun to just scroll through. Like I think a big part of being a collector is like just like looking at your collection and being like, and just taking a box off the shelf and looking at it or whatever, and just being like, this is something tangible. And I think Polymega comes as close to replicating the tangibility of physical games, but in a digital fashion, way more so than scrolling through words on a screen. That's just not as much fun.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So the episode title is now reminiscing about the Polymega.
Yeah, it's talking about the Polymega and roguelites.
Hey, I just heard the kids for the first time.
Oh yeah, no, they're having it.
Yeah.
I hope the cops aren't coming for them because they seem like they're having a good time, and I feel like it's very challenging to be a child these days. There's a lot of stress. They seem like
Listen,
they're having.
you're reminiscing about your your 16-bit days as if they were like just the golden days of Mike Zeller. But man, like I don't know, man. I feel like those days were really really tough, right? You had, I mean, I don't think being an adult is terribly easy, but at least I have way more control over what I'm doing minute to minute. Being thrown into a car and then thrown onto a bus and then being stuck in school all day. It's like you just have zero control over like what you're doing minute to minute. At least as an adult, if you say, screw this job, I'm out of here. You can quit if you want to. Like, you don't get to just quit school if you're a kid with like, parents who actually care about you.
Yeah, no. Well, I that's why I was trying to frame the languages. I don't necessarily have a lot of warm memories of like my tween and teen years, but the warm memories that I do have are predominantly about video games. Like those were good times. Those were good times. Sitting like I always tell this story, and I'm sure I've told this story like multiple times on the show before. When I was in college, my parents and my brother went on some. It wasn't exactly a vacation. It was like a school trip for my brother. I think he was part of one of those robotics teams, and they like went to Florida or something for that. And so I was on spring break, and I was just home because they needed me to house sit for them while they were away. And the first day of spring break, there was like a heavy snowstorm, not like a blizzard, but like a lot of snow. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? I guess I'm shoveling the driveway by myself because I got to go do things today. So I went to go dig my car out, and like it was like the second shovelful of snow, I threw my back out. And I was just like, oh, that's a no good. Like, we're having a problem now.
That's a no good.
Yeah, and so I was like out of commission because I not only was I having horrible back pain, but I couldn't dig out my car. So I was like, well, I hope I have enough food to get me through the week here because I can't leave the house, even if I could stand up. But what I ended up doing is like, so I just like sat there with like a heat pack on my back, like in a blanket. And I just spent like that spring break playing Cursive Monkey Island. And like I was in a lot of pain and I was trapped in my house, but I still have very warm memories of that experience because like Cursive Monkey Island is great, and like that's literally all I could do. I like just sat there and played Cursive Monkey Island because like I couldn't do anything else, and it was a lot of fun. Like it was a fun week despite the pain and being stuck inside.
Man, this is so random, but it's funny because just before the show, I was talking to you about some like The Dig. Right?
Oh
The
yeah,
Dig from Lucasfilm, and how like that came out just after I got into console gaming, and like we didn't have a CD-ROM in our computer, and so I missed out on like some amazing, like kind of I would say like the last great era of point-and-click adventure games.
Yeah. Until now,
Throttle.
they've kind of come back now, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I feel like I've grown out of the genre.
Oh.
That's the problem, is like because it was my favorite genre, right? Growing up and having like Maniac Mansion and Zack McCracken and Loom and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade being like my absolute favorite games of all time, and so I was just champing at the bit. It's like the first time I've used that expression properly.
It's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah. For the next one, I wouldn't even know the next LucasArts game or Lucasfilm game that was coming out until I was at this store and I just saw The Secret of Monkey Island on the wall, and I'm like, what is this? Right? And I was like, can I buy this? And then, yeah. And so, so it was just like a different era. But it means like I missed out on the experience of like Full Throttle being my only game to play for like 4 or 5 months, or Sam and Max, or Grim Fandango. Right? This is like it was really like the last era of great point-and-click adventures, as you said, until recently. And so I was told that all these work really well on Steam Deck, despite the fact that they're listed on Steam as not supported. And so I was kind of going through and being like, just adding things to my cart to play on Steam Deck, Fate of Atlantis and all these games. So I feel like I'm about to have a resurgence of the point and click era. I just hope that I can do it, that I can get into it, right? Because I just loved just wandering around aimlessly and trying to figure out puzzles when I was a kid. But now, you know, I'm gonna go online and just look up the answer. I it's just a different time, and I feel like time is more valuable than it used to be. When I was a kid, it just seemed like it doesn't matter if it takes me 3 years to finish this game. It's what else am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I try to be with adventure games. I try to be really like rigid with myself and not look up the solution unless I'm stuck for like hours and I'm at the point where I'm like I'm literally going to give up on this game if I can't figure this out. Yeah, and this ties in really well because I actually obviously I have a lot of warm feelings towards those. Curse of Monkey Island is a game that I go back to and I mean that's one you can knock out in like a day and a half maybe if like you know all the solutions to the puzzles. So
And that's what I missed out on. I did the first two. I know those games inside out. And then I didn't play another Monkey Island game until Escape from Monkey Island on PlayStation 2 because it's console. But Curse is like when they started changing up the animation style.
yeah.
And you know, and that just wasn't going to be, and that was just, like I said, I think that's after things went CD-ROM. And so I played the first 10 minutes or so of that, like emulated on Scum VM, and I'm like, this is going to be great. But I've never stuck with it, so I'm excited for that to be one of the first ones I play when I get back into point and click games.
Yeah, no, I love that stuff. There was this was before Steam really blew up, before Good Old Games. I went through a period where I was trying to track. It was like Scum VM, you know Scum VM, right? Mm-hmm. When that had like blown up and was like a thing. And so like as long as you had the discs, you could like load them in and like emulate everything through, you know, pull out the files and things. So there was like a stretch for a few months where I was trying to track down like CDs for all of these old point and click adventure games. And I would like find them at thrift stores and things sometimes too, because like everyone was getting rid of PC games. And like, yeah, like especially right from that period where they would have the really, really nice like cell animation, like Curse of Monkey Island, Leisure Suit Larry 7, the Neverhood. That's not cell animate, but like stop motion animation. You know, and they just looked so like it was like you're playing a cartoon. And I remember I tracked down a whole bunch at that point and like loaded them all into my Scum VM file and like played through a whole bunch of games around then, which was awesome. I think those games are pretty easy to go back to because they're not like the LucasArts ones. I would say more so than the Sierra ones because you can't really get stuck in the LucasArts one. So it's like
Right.
And they're also a little bit sillier. They're a little more just like playful. So I feel like you can just kind of like bask in those for a while and enjoy yourself.
You know, I meant to ask you this when you're talking about Earthbound, but do you generally, when you go back and play these games, you said you know how to get through them. Do you ever go, hey, this time I'm gonna, you know, create a completely different type of character, or I'm gonna build, you know, I'm gonna focus on magic this time? This doesn't really pertain to Earthbound so much, but when it comes to comfort games, like, do you want to play them the way that you know them, or do you want to push the boundaries and see how else you can get through them and experiment with, you know, different paths, or make different decisions, or build your character differently, or is it just kind of like, oh, this is how I did it as a kid, so this is how I'm going to do it again?
Yeah, to answer your question, I always play through games the exact same way. And like I've never done like a speed run or like a limited item run or like anything like that. I'm sure if eventually we'll have John back on the show, and I feel like he has this whole theory about me and like why I do that, because like even with other things, like with the Dark Souls games, I literally do the exact same build every single time. I have no idea how the magic system works in any of the From Software games, because I just like I don't know how to use. I'm not gonna mess with this stuff. I always just a melee build.
That's crazy to me. Crazy.
I've never.
No,
I've just never used it.
Because are you familiar with Sierra's The Colonel's Bequest?
Yeah, the murder mystery one. The like, yeah.
I think one of the best Sierra games like ever made in my book, because it's so open ended. You can miss so much evidence in that game. You can miss so many of the murders if you're just not in the right place at the right time, and I love the way it did that. And I find that like when I replay that game, I just play it the same way that I did the last time, but the fact that it's so open-ended is the appeal, and it's
Right.
kind of meant to be replayed over and over so you can see all of the stories that you missed the last time. But there's a part of me that's like, well, I don't want to miss the story that I saw the last time. I need to see that again. And so, which makes me again miss the stuff that, replaying it, the appeal of replaying it is gone, but that's not why I'm replaying it. It's really strange. And so I unfortunately tend to do the same stuff. Like I get through a game successfully, and I'm like, and that's how I'm going to get through it the next time as well.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's like you said. That's kind of part of the comfort is like you want to do the part that's familiar. I going way back to what we first started talking about. Like I am always a little leery of nostalgia, despite the fact that I'm hosting currently a retro gaming show. Like, I am always a little leery of that, like, oh, I love this stuff when I was a kid, so now I just, like, can't ever move on from it in my life. And I do, like, try to always, like, be, reading new books and playing new games and, watching movies and listening to new music and exposing myself to new things. But, like, realistically, we all need that, like, warm hug sometimes. And so, like, when I do retreat back to those kinds of things, like, yeah, it's because I want it to, like, be familiar and, like, comforting and safe.
Yeah, I think that about sums it up.
Yeah, no, that is a really good note to end on. We've been going about an hour, so. Well, yeah, like, thanks for joining me again, Bryan. I was, it was really interesting to hear your kind of take on things.
Yeah, and when you first brought this up, I was like, I don't think this is going to be a good episode because all of my comfort gaming tends to be, it's all just roguelites. But I felt like the more we talked about it, the more I kind of like allowed my brain to open up a little bit and think about all the other things that kind of make comfort gaming that I wasn't thinking about prior to the show. So now I just want to go play the dig.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. You should. You should. Yeah, so thanks for joining us, Bryan. Thank you, viewers/listeners, for tuning in. Yeah, we'll see you real soon. Have a great week, everybody.
It probably won't be soon.
It probably won't. Yeah, it's going to be at least a month.